Hello everybody, a warm welcome to the Scandinavian Female Empowerment Summit 2018. Ingrid and I are beyond grateful that you're here with us, wanting to step into your true feminine power, manifesting through your heart and letting the world know about your gifts and let your inner music play. And today from Denmark, I have Kirsten Stendevad. Hello Kirsten, welcome to the summit.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for having me. This is so exciting. A Scandinavian Summit of female leaders. That's great.
We are very excited too. And today we're going to speak about the body. That's like the overall topic for today. And also I want to speak about how we can step into our feminine power and what that is, what that means, and also how we can show up as women in our full power, in our sensuality, use our sensuality more, come into contact more with our female bodies, and also perhaps speak a little bit about the 21st century skills, which I know you know a lot about. But first, you are a true visionary. You are known in Scandinavia for being a transformational role model, a mentor. You're helping people and businesses to adapt to the new paradigm, to the 21st century skills. And you're also teaching women how to step into their true unique leadership, which and to create extraordinary results in their work and at their homes. And you've written several books, and the newest one, I believe, is Future is Female.
The Future is Feminine.
Feminine,
yeah.
Which will come soon out in English. And that's good news for all the viewers out there.
Yeah.
So I would love to ask first, before we delve into, the feminine qualities, how you got so passionate in the first place about the feminine.
I got passionate about it because it was a mystique. It was a mystery to me. What is the feminine and what can you use it for? And I was one of those many women from Generation X who was brought up with the idea that the masculine power is more attractive, that it's more attractive to be to perform well, to demonstrate outer results, to be able to, it gave higher status and more money to be able to show your accomplishments and your achievements, and low status or no attention on your being. And I could just feel in my heart, in my womb, and in my intuitive system that there's something very, very wrong with that picture. There's something that ignores the feminine nature, which is everywhere in the nature, including in men. There's something in our culture that suppresses the natural rhythm of life, the natural biological design, the feminine qualities, the contributions and the gifts from the feminine that are maybe invisible and in the dark and in the mystery, but that nonetheless are one half of the equation of creation itself. So I was very, very curious, and after spending very many years being a high achiever, a high performer, creating lots of external results, I thought it was time to, I felt a longing in my heart to use my natural skills. I remember I was working in Danish television at some point, and I could see that there was a very big difference between how the men and women were operating and how they were viewed, how they were regarded and treated. And I was very puzzled about that. And I asked my girlfriends, what's going on in corporations? What's going on in professional life? Why is it that the feminine qualities are so overlooked and not giving any status? Why is it more important to just come and say, I think this is like this, and just be convinced that you're right? Why do these perspectives win in corporations and not the feminine perspectives about wholeness, about lifting everybody, about teamwork? Why is it always the masculine perspective that wins? Excuse me. And my girlfriend said to me, well, Kirsten, you haven't understood. You just have to imitate the masculine style, then you will win. And then I concluded, okay, if the competition I'm participating in is called 1, 2, 3, who's best at being a man, I will always be number 2. So I don't want to contribute, I don't want to participate in that competition. And so I opted out and created my own path. I became an entrepreneur. I started creating my goddess school, my millionaire school, my leadership institution. And so I never looked back. I was never back in corporate life again.
Wow.
And I think this is your opportunity for all women, and that's why your summit is very important and an expression of the rise of the divine feminine, because this is an opportunity that more and more women are grabbing. Why should we suppress our natural qualities, our natural genius? Why should we suppress that to align with masculine concepts and masculine ideas and masculine framework that is crumbling anyway? The future is more feminine, so even the men have to adapt to a more feminine leadership, more creativity, more holistic thinking, more collaboration, more intuitive thinking or intuitive operating from the intuition. So that's where we're all heading. So we women should stop trying to imitate the masculine style and be grateful that we learned that our masculine muscle got strong, but now we need to have a very strong feminine muscle so we can combine the two and create extraordinary results at home, at work, and in the world.
Yeah. So before you started your own work, were you also really suppressing those feminine qualities? I'm just trying to picture it. Or was it more that you had them all along and you didn't just want to go along with the masculine? Or did you feel like you had been suppressing so much of your femininity that all of a sudden it got clear to you?
I had my feminine qualities all along because that's how I'm designed and that's my strength. It is my genius. I'm really, really good at the feminine qualities. But I was unconscious about what are my feminine qualities and how can I use them and what are they worth? How can I make them worth a value for other people? How can I even earn money on my feminine qualities, such as my ability to lift others and to empower others and to make a team work better and make everybody collaborate and make everybody feel happy at work? How can I make that visible as a valuable input and a valuable contribution, just as valuable as climbing the ladder and creating results on the bottom line? How can I show that these qualities are also valuable for the bottom line, maybe even more so now and in the future? So I was not conscious about what are my feminine qualities. I was not, and they were not cultivated. So what? And also I was where I was suppressing my feminine qualities was that I was prioritizing living from the head. So I was very I was like not at all aware of all the qualities below my head, of all the resources and the genius below my head. I had no idea. So that's what I started to discover when I checked in on the path of becoming a fully blossomed me. And a fully blossomed woman has a consciousness and access to her feminine qualities because that's part of her genius. There's a reason why you're born in a woman's body, and you might as well benefit to the fullest from that particular privilege.
How did it change your outside world in a way when you became conscious of your feminine power, your feminine qualities, and stepped truly into them and started navigating from them? How did your circumstances and people around you react in a way?
Well, I can say there was a pivot. I was living for many years in New York City, and I took all kinds of courses and trainings because it was like a very good hub, very good center for all kinds of personal development. And I remember long leadership training, and it was full of great concepts, great ideas about how to be in integrity and how to communicate powerfully and blah, 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 lots of great leadership skills. But at the end of that leadership training, I was hungry for something with the body. I was like, enough of being in the head from morning to night, enough of concept, rational thinking, ideas. I was like, my body was screaming, include me. So what I did was I started taking a lot of training. My first training was as an instructor in Kundalini yoga, which is like aerobics for the hormonal system. I started taking a lot of trainings in energy work, everything that was irrational and not in the mind. I started cultivating my other qualities. And what changed was my being. So I think that before I was inspiring from here, now it was my whole being that was beaming of a different energy. So of course that changes things. It changes my relationship to my man because he reacts to me in a different way, because now it's not only head to head, it's like
In what
my
way?
heart. Well, more power.
Mm-hmm.
So, so a lot more power. So before I was easier um, to get out of balance. You know, people could say something that would maybe hurt me or throw me off track or throw me off balance. That doesn't happen anymore because I'm centered all the way. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that I can't get puzzled or affected by other people, but I know how to get myself quickly back into balance because I have my whole my whole self. I'm not just operating from the mind. So my feeling of personal power and strength and balance and creative power changed immensely. So I become a lot more conscious of my resources and my ability to tackle any situation. And that's a great power to go out in the world with, because it means that you can take on more risks, you can take on more jobs, more, you can do, actually you become free to do whatever you want because you're not afraid anymore. And you know you have your resources.
So inspiring. Can you tell us now, and especially for those out there who haven't kind of felt, this power, who haven't stepped into their feminine power, what does it mean? What kind of qualities is it? How can we step into our true feminine power?
Big question, and that's why I do, my trainings with people are quite long, because I don't think it's a quick fix. I often have people in training for 9 months or even 12 months because I see that this transformation is very subtle. I usually describe it like this. I don't know if you can see my hands, but in the beginning, you change something, but it looks like nothing happens. But over the long run, you come on a completely different path, and that's what happens when you start. When you start diving into and allowing yourself to unfold more and more your feminine power. So it's very, very subtle, I would say, first of all. But how do we do that? Well, the first step is to desire it. A lot of women in the corporate world don't desire it yet. They think they're fine, being in the hamster wheel, doing like the men, maybe being frustrated and stressed, but not really knowing it, because what the problem is that a lot of women can't feel that there is a problem. Because they're so used to being in the head that they don't have the sensation in the body and in the system that something is wrong. So the first step is to become aware. There's something missing. There's something, I'm not completely at ease in my skin. There must be more. There must be a different path. There must be more to unfold. Can this really be it? So you need that urge, you need that desire. And I think for all leadership, you need a desire that tomorrow is better than yesterday. You need that desire, that urge to change something, to envision something different. That is very crucial for leadership or for any kind of transformation. So that would be the first step. And many women don't get there voluntarily. They get there through a crisis. So they get there through stress, depression, divorce, being fired, some kind of big shift in their lives where they really feel pain, where they really, or maybe feel numb, or feel depressed, or feel that they lost the
spark,
the spark, yeah, or the motivation or the meaning of life. And that is a gift. A crisis is a wonderful. It's a terrible thing to waste. It's a wonderful gift. It's a wonderful gift, because that's where you can wake up. That's where you can have the opportunity to wake up and pivot in a different direction. And then maybe in the beginning you feel what you feel is not very pleasant. Suddenly, with feeling more comes feeling also the pain from suppressing yourselves maybe for years, the pain of being treated not with respect and getting the love you actually deserve for years, perhaps. I mean, that is a very frustrating feeling in the beginning. But again, I would say be grateful that you can feel it, because that's a sign of health. That's a sign of the feminine, the divine feminine you waking up and taking her place and communicating to you, expressing herself, what she wants and what she doesn't want. She's very powerful. She's a genius. I would say an expression for the feminine is she knows. So that's your inner knowing. So be happy that she expresses herself and says yes or no.
Well, let me just ask you a little bit. Maybe someone is thinking now, but I am in my feminine power. Like I'm walking in skirts, taking on lipstick. I feel feminine. What have I been suppressing? I don't feel like I have been suppressing. But do you say that it's on a more subtle level? In a way, it's the way we have been met through society and the way we have been manifesting thing through a more like energetic masculine qualities, because I think it's not so easy to understand the feminine power in a way. I'm not quite sure if I am in my feminine power, if it has to do with me putting on lipstick. It's a silly example, or if I am more a masculine driven woman who has suppressed her feminine qualities. I'm not quite sure.
Well, I would say the feminine is not about the external look. I mean, as feminine people, we like aesthetics. So the feminine enjoys beauty, colors, the ability to shift, shift expression according to her mood. So that's why we like, a lot of women, not all women, like the opportunity, the possibility of using lipstick and makeup and different hairdos and different colors and so on. I mean, it's just a way of playing with life and expressing the different feminine faces. But you can be just as feminine without any makeup, without any adornment of any kind. The beautiful thing about today is that we wake up to the feminine having just as many expressions as there's women. So you can be feminine in any way you want. It's not about the external. And you can have a different, we all have different, what can you say? We all contain all feminine archetypes, but some of them are more developed in some of us than others. For example, for me, the mother archetype is quite dominant. The leader archetype, the queen leader, queen of community. I mean, that archetype is prevalent in me, but the nature girl, the one who runs around the woods in bare feet and screams her lungs out, that's not super developed in me. I can do it, but I'm not really super turned on by it. It's like, the times I've done it, I have it's not my predominant archetype. So we have to find our own ways of being feminine. And I'm super grateful for all the women who express the other archetypes, because it gives me a perspective on, the beauty of how many ways we can unfold the feminine power. Some are doing it in corporations by being super duper powerful and organizing organizations in a new way. I admire them and I think they're super cool and I cheer on them, but I don't want to be in a corporation. So we have many ways of expressing the feminine, and you're right, it is subtle. I think that we recognize feminine power when we see it, when we experience it, just like you recognize true masculine power when you see it. And what is true feminine? We can say, if we look at men, what is true masculine power? Well, for me, it's a man who really stands in masculinity. He's not afraid of being a man, but he is very aware that a man without a heart is not a real masculine man. That's just a macho. And a man who doesn't have the masculine quality is just an estrogen guy. He's just like a female man. He's not a real real masculine. So actually, the interesting thing about the real masculine power is that it has a little bit of the feminine in it. And same with real feminine power, it has a little bit of the masculine in it. It's a good integration of the masculine and the feminine. It's like wholeness. It's the union of yin and yang. When you have that union between yin and yang, you're really powerful because you're unstoppable. You have nothing that stops you. So it's not about the looks, but it's about qualities. I think it's about being in integrity with your essence, knowing your design and what your design, being in tune with your design. For example, women have built in, whether you want it or not, whether you're a very masculine woman or a very feminine woman, we all are designed as women with a hormonal system that is cyclical, So we are born with, this whole cycle inside of us. And that's a different anatomy than being born as a man. It's just different anatomy. So feminine power is about living in alignment with that design. So, for example, not criticizing yourself if you're in a bad mood one day, or if you just feel like resting, or if you're not super effective at work, or if you're not happy all the time, but acknowledging, well, that's part of my feminine design, is that things shift. Maybe I'm in my winter cycle, so to speak, my dormant cycle, my resting cycle, and if I allow that, I can actually, that will prepare me for more creativity when the time is right for that. And then, maybe I'm not super creative right now, but there will come a time where I'm ready. My seeds have matured enough to really blossom. So that's living in alignment with your feminine design and not suppressing it. And it's super difficult in modern society because we're expected to be affected all the time, to be super effective all the time, to have a growth that goes along a linear curve. That's not realistic. That's not how women are designed. We're designed to have a cyclical curve. And once we live in alignment with that, we can find out, wow, my creativity peaks at some times a month. Maybe I should live in alignment with that and really allow myself space to be creative at those times. And there are times a month where I'm more introspective. Let me allow that so I can really use that time to reflect and find out what's really right for me and what feels like my next step. And so then if I allow that, I can come back with 200 kilometers an hour because now I really know what I want to do and I'm really tuned into it. So that's an example of living in alignment with your feminine power and acknowledging and knowing it. Where a lot of women miss out, I would say, is that a lot of women who are waking up now to their spiritual power. So they're getting more in touch with their intuition, with a more spiritual worldview, more spiritual perspective on their lives, and that's a beautiful start, and that means a lot. I mean, that changed everything for me to wake up to that perspective. And a lot of women are also very good in touch with their heart. Mostly women are good at giving love, but we have to train receiving as well, because that's not a muscle that's very strong in very many women, although that's what we're designed to do. We're designed to attract. We have that magnetic power in us, so we're designed to actually attract love and attract things to us without so much hard work. But that's what we're waking up to too. But what I find we're a little bit slow at, or what has not been a tradition, what is coming up right now, and it's rising everywhere in the world, but that's the most suppressed part, is our sexuality. Because our sexuality has been associated with guilt and shame for thousands of years. And you can see all over the world that's an area where women are so abused that we almost feel it on a collective level. This is really a painful, traumatized area of our female DNA, our feminine DNA. But there's a whole world to open there, because that's our creative powers. It's our ability to create. I mean, to create miracles, to create new life, a new life for ourselves, a new life in the world, a new life for our children. It's our superpower. So
how can we, in a way, balance that? How can we connect more with that lower chakra or that creative chakra and balance those sexual energies, or not feel, or what can we do about this collective shame that you're talking about, and transform that to something pure and creative, and perhaps have a deeper connection with our vagina, to be honest?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's the first step is to become aware of what it costs us to not be, and I need to add here that it's not about, I see a lot of women in the self-development, you could say it's almost industry, that, some women are very much into spirituality, some women are very much into cultivating the heart, some women are very much into tantra and cultivating the sexual energy. But what I work with in feminine leadership is the whole thing, because I think it's about connecting all the centers and becoming whole, so that it's not just part of it. So that idea of separating things is a very masculine idea. It's a very industrial age masculine idea. So that's the first thing I want to say. It's not about either or. It's not about, okay, now I need to cultivate my sexuality. That's not what I would say enough, but it's a very good way it's a good key to your feminine power. But you need them all. I just want to say, you need light and all your light bulbs to be fully stepped into your feminine power. And that's the exciting part, because that's a big adventure to embark on, and a big discovery. And it doesn't need to happen overnight. The beautiful thing is that it can happen. You just embark on that journey, and it keeps unfolding. And even if you've been in this work for many, many years, it keeps unfolding. You keep being surprised of what the new layers of it and the new depths of it. But if we go back to what I call the holy lap, it's a very big key to our feminine power. I did a course called the Holy Lab, and I was surprised of how much feminine power that came out of that course, because it turns out that if we dare putting our attention on the Holy Lab for a while, and really learning about why we're so ashamed of this area, and free up some of that shame, heal our traumas, because every woman she hasn't experienced abuse herself, she has experienced it through the cultural DNA. So there's a big healing work to be done there, and a big work of forgiveness of the masculine, the abusive masculine, the big work of taking care of us, of mothering ourselves again, purifying ourselves from our guilt and shame about what we have allowed to happen in that area. All the times we were with men that we didn't really love, all the times we did things because we thought we were supposed to perform sexually, but it didn't really feel great for us. All the times we left ourselves in bed to please the man. All the times we didn't dare stop him saying, no, slower, or can we just connect with the heart before we move on? Or all the times we didn't do that. It's a big sadness that comes up there, and that should be allowed. And that's why women's groups and traveling together with other women is incredibly healing. It's a sisterhood, because we all know what each other talk about. We've all experienced aspects of it. So that's the first thing, to open up to that, to feeling the pain associated with suppressing your feminine sexuality and abusing it, and even yourself being part of the abuse because you allowed it in one way or another. I mean, I'm not talking about rape here, but I'm talking about not standing up for ourselves. And how can we stand up for ourselves when we're not trained and educated and conscious about we are allowed to have a different sexuality than the masculine? There is a feminine sexuality, and here's how to open up to that. Once we open up to that, we can see, oh my God, it's how beautiful. The feminine sexuality and the masculine sexuality is complementary, and we can actually complementarity. I never know how to say that word in English, but it complements each other. And if we are aware of the two different styles, so to speak, and learn how to dance between those styles, we can create ecstasy and beauty for both sexes. So it's very important for women to discover our own the feminine sexuality, and allow that to be explored, and allow that to be contributed to the masculine as a gift. This is what I contribute. The feminine sexuality is not always nice and kittenly, and can you please be slow, and can you please be. That's not about it. It can also be about riding as a wild tiger. It can be like expressing your kali, your wildness, your lioness, your animalistic nature. So it's not about one version of the feminine, but it's to allow my sexuality, my feminine sexuality, and also being aware that I can shift. I can also go into a masculine sexuality and have fun with that, and then switch back into the feminine. I can play with these energies. I don't have to be stuck in one energy. It's way too limited. And when I limit myself in my sexuality, I also tend to limit myself in life. I don't express myself fully in life. I don't go fully for the whole thing. I'm not greedy about sucking in life's nutrients and really digesting them and letting them come out as my big contribution to the world. So I really feel women need to be more greedy about their own pleasure, their own really getting to know their feminine, their whole feminine spectrum more, because once we do, we get so much more out of life, and we can contribute so much more, and it's so much more fun. That's an alive woman, a woman who's turned on, who is feels connected to the big picture, to the whole, and who has a lot more power.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that if you do embrace your sexuality more as a woman, and you're also healing that part, work with yourself on that, or with sisterhood groups, I would assume that the way you show up in the world is completely different, because all of a sudden you are connected with this creative part of you, which will, I think, make you a more sensual woman. The way you're moving, you are not cut off in a way, just in your heart, like you're saying, or just in your head. You're like having your whole body. You're letting yourself, feel that pleasure of being a woman. And do you agree that that will be a good tool to also be a more sensual woman in the world, like when we're out on jobs and living our lives, that the way we're moving will be more sensual in a way?
There's like a paradigm difference between a woman who is at home in her sexuality and a woman who's not. One who's at home in her sexuality has a different radiance. She's juicy. She radiates in a different way. Somebody who is not is a little bit close. Her light is dimmed, and you can see that if you walk on the street, you can see who's turned on, who has the light on, and who's not. It's very, very clear to see, and it has nothing to do with looks or age or weight or anything. Some of the most sexy women I've seen have been older women, and what you could say overweight and not very beautiful in the traditional sense, but so freaking hot. Just so inspiring for being so hot and so at home in their sexuality. It's so beautiful. There's nothing more attractive than that. So why don't we women get to that? We need to do that. And what I've seen, that particular course I'm talking about, which is now only an online course, but I did it as a live course for a whole year. And I was really puzzled about it. It was so incredible to see, a so-called ordinary women walking in, and somebody you wouldn't really notice in a crowd because she's not really making a big fuss of herself. She's very neutrally clothed and has a neutral job. She maybe work as an accountant or something not super sexy at first. And then to see that woman a year later being so freaking hot and juicy and just somebody that you would notice in a room. What is it with that woman? Is it her looks? No. Is it her job? No. It's not like she has what is it with that woman? And the energy has completely changed. And she's just becoming attracted. Her magnetism is turned on, is alive. And that's the difference. And a woman like that, look at them manifesting this miracle, this attraction, changing the relationship, changing the jobs, changing the money situation, changing everything, healing relationships, miracles just pouring down. It could be, I experienced that because turning on that magnetism was just like a whole different story it was like turning on their yin power, and the yin power is the magnetic power, is the moon that is able to move the waters, the ocean. It's an incredible power. Why don't we use it? Why do we think we have to make things happen with our sun energy, which is the masculine, which is the go-getting and, go-giving to get, the always contributing to get something, always being out there and serving other people and breastfeeding everybody else. Why don't we use that other half, the magnetic power, the moon power, this ability to just sit here and be super juicy and hot and delicious and turned on by life, and then attracting possibilities and people and opportunities and situations. And I saw, a group of ordinary women become freaking extraordinary. They almost scared me. I was like, oh my God, who could have known that there's so much power in this room? I had no idea when I started. It was just like ordinary women from, housewives, middle managers, nothing like, they were not, nothing external about them was their power. But when they got their power turned on, it was different women, and watch them grow, watch them change the world.
So fascinating, because it's not about, like you're saying, it's just through the heart, you can just manifest through the heart. That's not what we're meaning, it's exactly what you're saying, that it's it's your whole system. I think it's about when you accept and integrate more parts of you that have been suppressed, then you release so much, you let go of so much energy, and you open up to so many more possibilities. And it's like we're taking layers of the onion and letting our star that's within shine properly. And also the heart is not judging anything. So when you're in the heart just observes, and it just accepts and loves everything. So also thinking through the heart, you will also be able to connect with your lower chakra and your sexual chakra, because the heart is like, yeah, come on, everybody's in. Like, no judgment, no shame, no nothing of that, just unity. And that's what it is, like wholeness, unity. And I just thought it was so interesting that we're talking about the sexual energies, because that's not something we've been speaking so much about in the summit, and how it all is linked together. It's all linked together.
Yeah.
But,
and I would say, I just want to say, Jenny, for me, I used to be somebody who's really cultivating the power of the heart and doing the work on all my beliefs, and experiencing my emotions and cleaning them up before I was like addressing my men. But I have found that when you are in your full feminine power, you also know how to put up limits. You also know how to. You don't only say yes to everything, and I'm not judging anything, and please come and.
oh yeah.
You also know. You also know. Here's a limit. Don't treat me like this. Or I don't want to be treated like this. Or I don't. Here's my limit. Please respect this limit. This is a super important skill for women to learn, because, and I want to insert it because. For many years, I thought that the feminine power was in being like Gandhi or Jesus, or just like Nelson Mandela, and just like, okay, just abuse me and I will still love you. And I don't feel like that anymore. I feel that it's also important to be so strong in your energy that you don't get abused, that people can see, okay, don't even think of abusing this woman.
Oh, I completely agree. I think also the heart is brave. It's bravery. And I think like Heart Math Institute is talking about this coherence between the head and the heart. And that when you have this coherence, when the heart is communicating with the head and you are feeling positive emotions, then you have like this optimal frequency. That whales and dolphins are communicating on is like 0.1 hertz, and then you have really full access to like intuition and solutions and anything. And the head is more looked upon like through a metaphysical perspective as like ego, and the heart is more looked at unity. But we need both. Like we need both. It's all about balance. We can't only be in the heart. It's not about that. But I think that we've been so much in our heads that we need to practice being more in the heart to get that balance. But it's very important what you said. It's not all about being in the heart all the time. Because then I could get run over by a car because I think I'm in unity with everything. And I'm, as you're saying, not having boundaries. So we need that too. Definitely. But it's just practicing more, I think. The heart, the feminine, because we haven't been doing that either. It's been a masculine paradigm, it's been head, rationality, Newton thinking, mechanical science. Now it's more like quantum physics is coming, everything is interconnected. So it's so interesting. So I think we have to really practice, like over practice being in the heart in a way to get that balance, to feel like, how does it feel to be in the heart? But that's something I think every woman has to investigate also for herself. What does it mean for me to be in my heart? Maybe someone has really been into their sexual energy and others have not. So it's like, yeah, that's where I should start in a way. So I think like all the paths are a bit different. But I wanted to ask you that since we are, speaking about that, lighting up that sexual energy. How can I do that if I was going to now practice that a bit? Is it about me giving more pleasure to myself? Is it about having more pleasure in my life? Is it all about the body, or is it about also eating chocolate, like things like that? Is it about having a lot of sex or the way I'm having, intercourse? Can you say a bit more about how we actually practically can turn on that sexual center?
Yeah, pleasure is key for women, and we need a lot more than we get. But also, because pleasure is very, very good for our feminine design. So pleasure releases oxytocin, which is like the bonding hormone, the feel-good hormone that does a lot of healing work in the body. So as soon as oxytocin is at work, we clean up all the mess created by stress and testosterone and adrenaline and all that floating around in our system. So pleasure is very, very crucial for women, and most of us don't get enough pleasure. Then I would say there's a big difference between immediate pleasures like devouring chocolate, which is delicious to do sometimes, but there's a difference between that kind of pleasure and the pleasure that really comes from really caring about yourself. So for me, there is a big difference between the instant gratification of eating chocolate and it takes a little bit more for me to get over to my yoga mat, but it's it's so much more pleasure to get over to the yoga mat because it's a long-lasting pleasure and it's also an empowerment pleasure. So I distinguish between different kinds of pleasure. But pleasure is a good way to start. And if we should say by sexually, first step is to find out what gives you pleasure. I mean, touching yourself, not just in the area of our Yoni and all that, but all of our body, and finding out, oh my God, we have erogenous zones all over. It's about expanding our sense of pleasure and expanding our sense of the pleasure that can be taken from, not just giving pleasure, but taking pleasure from touching yourself, from being touched or directing, how you would like to be touched, finding out what do you like, what gives you pleasure. So you can also guide your partner when you have a partner to give you, why don't you get the most out of the situation? You might as well get the most pleasure. And you're not able to do that if you don't know pleasure, if you don't know what's pleasurable for you, if you haven't investigated and explored it, if you haven't allowed yourself to find out, what do I adore? What really turns me on? What's the greatest thing you can do for me? And a guy will be very, very, or a partner will usually be very, very happy about not just being in the blind about what is actually giving this woman pleasure. A partner, it could be male or female, will be very grateful to get some guidelines as to how is your pleasure? How can I give you the most pleasure? That's what we want to do for each other as erotic partners. We want to give each other the most. That's the whole point. So it's very, very good or very necessary, I think, that women get to know their sexuality better. And for many women, it starts with getting rid of the shame and guilt. Am I allowed to touch myself? And is it okay that it's not only in the dark? And can I be public about it? Or can I, be public to myself about it? Don't have to tell everybody, but can I be 100% okay with it? And also, if you have some trauma, it's very important to heal that trauma. And you can help yourself heal that trauma by really giving yourself everything you didn't get, by giving yourself the softness and the care and the slowness and just like the mothering and the being your own best mistress and best seductress and the best delicious sensual partner you can be. You can give that to yourself. And then exploring more and more, our feminine design, what's inside that feminine mystique, getting to know the anatomy of pleasure, the anatomy of orgasms, the different kinds of orgasms and how you get access to them so you become more proficient at your feminine sexuality and find out, how do I actually, what is it? I mean, many women have no idea how they look inside. They don't know that the clitoris is not just this little thing. This is a long thing. They don't know that that our cervix is actually connected with our heart. So when we have a cervical orgasm, that's a heart opener.
Wow, I didn't know that.
No, I mean, why are these things not known? Why are they not taught in school? This must be the new paradigm that we teach women from young age. What's going on? What is Amrita? What and how is that? Just is that just like a pleasurable thing? Or I found out. I lost my son. One of my children died when he was 7, and I discovered that my cervix was crying. She released Amrita, this fluid. But that was not from pleasure. That was crying. That was crying over the loss of my son. And it really gave me this respect for the feminine design, how everything is interconnected in our bodies. Our heads don't even get how incredibly intelligent our bodies are. And now I've started to listen to the body first. The body always tells me first, and then I can rationalize, why is she saying that?
Yeah.
Why is my cycle suddenly changing? Or why is it suddenly 28 days and not 30 days? And why is it suddenly 20? It's talking to me all the time, and being faster than me at getting what's going on. And first afterwards, I understand. So, we can get to know, our own anatomy better, and get to know our own design better, and learn how to navigate it.
Just have to ask, you said that one of the orgasms goes through the heart and shoots out.
Yeah, I mean, there's a very big difference between clitoral orgasm, which is like a little sneeze in the local area, and then you can, have a G point and A point and different kinds of points that are connected. In the Eastern anatomy, all the points are connected to, it's meridians running through our whole body, and they're also in the Yoni. So why don't we learn that at school, for example? That we can actually heal our emotions through the Yoni.
Yoni, what is Yoni?
Yeah, a Yoni is like a Sanskrit word for what we in the West would call pussy. But I just think pussy is so, it can be, it's cute in English, but if you say it in your own language, in my language, it suddenly becomes quite vulgar. And so I like the Sanskrit word for it, because it's a more beautiful, it's like a flower, it has more respect.
Yeah.
I call this whole area for the holy lap. I prefer that because I like the idea that it's whole, it's connected to the whole, to my whole, and it's also connected to the bigger whole. Yeah. And once I got that for myself, it suddenly struck me, that's what went wrong in our culture, that we forgot to worship the holy lap. That's where a lot of things went wrong, when the masculine forgot that this is holy, this is sacred, this is connected to the whole, this is connected to the big divinity. Let's be very, very careful and respectful and worshiping this part of our divinity, which is our ability to create life and our ability to connect with God through our sexual openness and our sexual ecstasy. So it's like a whole Pandora's box when we open this and discover what's inside. And it's a beautiful journey, and I really recommend every woman to embark on that journey, because she will discover, it's such a powerful way to discover her own power and her own beauty and her own juice, and also, I'm 50 now, so I'm also I'm also in contact with this whole cultural stigma around being 50, and technically everything could go down the drain from here, and I could become dry and lose my juice and and I'm like, I made a ritual when I turned 50. I collected my sisters and I said, let's turn this vortex around, because for me, this is a new beginning. I have just begun. I have all these experiences, I have all this knowledge, but I haven't even begun. So I cannot even hear this cultural stigma. And do I want to lose my juice and all that? No way. I mean, I want better sex, more sex. I want more erotic intelligence. So we actually made a ritual for all women on the planet to turn this vortex around and say, 50, that's where it starts. all the rest is reparation. And I actually feel that with that,
it's so important. It's so important.
It's so important because women buy this cultural idea that you should have done everything you want before 40. Yeah. If you haven't met your party before 40, you're doomed. You're fucked. If you hadn't had your children before you're 35, you're fucked. I mean, why do we buy that? That's not the reality of things. In the Philippines, women get children until they're way up in their 50s because they don't know it's not possible.
Really?
Yeah. So we shouldn't buy these cultural stigmas about, menopause and perimenopause and so on. I mean, I have thrown the whole thing out. My body is working like a clockwork, and it's as juicy and as alive and vibrant as it's ever been. Yeah, I think I'm more healthy now than at 30 because of all this knowledge and because of applying all this knowledge. So I think that's a whole new era for women opening with this awareness, and that's where sisterhood comes in. That's why I love to create sisterhoods, because we can really, together we have such an enormous collective intelligence, and we can really help each other get all this faster, and open up faster to our divinity and our juice and our light, and it can be much more fun.
And I want to thank you for that, because it's so important that we have pioneers like you. I mean, I'm 37, and I'm thinking in my head, like, I am noticing that cultural belief that, oh, I have to stress. I have these 13 years before I get 50. I have to live and make this and family and my career and everything, because after that, I'm getting older, and as a woman, I'm not very attractive perhaps anymore. I don't know if I have my look still, and it's not like a conscious thought, but it's behind there. I'm noticing it's behind there. I'm getting worried a bit, like, just feeling it. And I want to look forward to everything that's coming in my life. I want a complete different way of viewing things. And that's why I have interviewed also older women talking about this. Because I want to be an empowered woman all my life. And I think we should be. Men, there are so many male models that are up in the years and with gray hair. And the culture is looking at them as very sexual with the gray hair. And I think women should be, be looked upon as like very attractive in their older ages as well. And it's a cultural thing, and it's a belief thing. It's not about how we look, it's about how we are seeing it, like culturally, I believe. So it's so interesting how things change when we look at things differently. I think Wayne Dyer said that when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And our minds are so powerful. But Kirsten, I think we have to finish this. I've taken so much of your time. It's just been so interesting. And I have one last question that I ask, Ingrid and I ask everyone. If you could share 3 tips, like 3 of your top tips on how we can step into our feminine power, like practical tools or tips that you would just, that are your best advices.
Well, I would say, I would advise people to find a mentor, so they don't have to invent the wheel themselves. Find somebody who inspires you. It can be in a book, it can be a girlfriend, it can be somebody you know and look up to, it could be your yoga teacher, whoever. But find a mentor, because then you don't have to invent the wheel yourself. So why not make it easier for yourself? And there's a lot available for women who want to learn from other women right now. So that would be my first. And the second one is find a sisterhood. Because again, that's a catalyst for change, and it's much more fun. And the era of the lone wolf is over. Now we're in the era of collaboration and of co-creation and of co-leadership. So once you enter sisterhood, everything for you will go faster. So I don't do anything without sisterhood. I have one myself. I create for all my students. Very important to have in your life, because it's just the support system, and it's the inspiration, it's the access to collective intelligence, and everything will just go faster for you. And the third piece of advice is enjoy the ride. There is actually not anywhere to, we're come from a masculine culture of being so focused on the goal. And it can be such a trap to fall into, to think, oh, I have to do this and this and this and this and this and this and this before I can relax and enjoy my life and really be there and really enjoy my children and enjoy. And it's such a trap. So I would say, and this is something we need to repeat to ourselves and each other all the time, because it's not the cultural norm in our society. Enjoy the ride, enjoy the process, take time for the process, take time for the now, take time for savoring, really like good piece of chocolate, really chew it and experience the effects, and really be here while you're here, because in 5 minutes you'll be 50 or 60 or 70, or you might not even be here. I had a 7-year-old son. I looked at pictures from the other day. He was like the most alive boy. He was my naughty little Prince Charming, so full of spark and so full of wit and intelligence and beauty and humor and love. And in 6 months, he was dead. And some people, it's like overnight. So why don't we enjoy this life? That's the opportunity that while we're here. So that I would say to all women, let's remember the feminine path. The feminine path is not about the goal. It's not about reaching a top. It's not about peaking and then what then afterwards. It's not about that peak. It's about a continual, daily, momentarily peak of enjoying each moment, enjoying the ride, and enjoying our sisterhoods, and enjoying. I enjoy being with you. It's so wonderful for me to connect with. Suddenly these Scandinavian sisterhoods opening. There's so much to be enjoyed, and we are, as women, the savior of the world because we can remind the world of this. Slow down to speed up. Let's take time for love. Let's take time for rest. Let's take time for nature, to take care of Mother Nature. Let's take time for living and not just be at some race about what? About reaching some top that never gets there. So, hallelujah.
Thank you so much, Kirsten. I felt like you transformed me just in this interview. Touches my heart, and I just want to say thank you so much for being who you are, being this pioneer, doing your work, being so brave to speak your truth, doing exactly what we want to inspire many other women to do. Let your inner music play, because we're hearing it and we're getting inspired by it. So thank you so much.
And that is it makes me so grateful that you are hearing it, that you can benefit from it, because that's why I'm here. And if all my experiences and my trials and tribulations and my loss, the biggest loss, if that can be used to lift and inspire, and that's a blessing for me. Then it was. I would never say anything was worth it, but it is so much better to be able to lift others with it.
Thank you, and all the best with your work.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for watching, everybody. And I remember that if you don't get time to see all the videos, you can also purchase the package for 6 months, and you can find that on the website. Now, remember to be the light that you are. Much light from Norway and Denmark.